Good evening. Can you all hear me? Good. All right. Well, thank you guys for coming. We sent out an email for people that may not be able to make it to have it online as well. So we've opened it up. Mrs. Hinders has my cell phone back there in the chat, so she's going to be watching that if there are questions that come in. I hope to get through the material fairly at a reasonable pace. I guess go ahead and ask questions whenever. We'll see. Hopefully it won't go too terribly long. I've got the air conditioning somewhat on, so hopefully it won't get too hot in here for us. So with that, let's pray and then we'll get started. Dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you for the opportunity to come together as a family and talk about this ministry you have here in Lodi, the school. And so, Lord, be with us as we talk about the things that are coming forward next year and how those changes will impact the school and the families and the staff as well. And so, Lord, just be with us as we have this conversation and get an understanding of the vision and the mission that you have here at St. Peter. We ask this in your name. Amen. All right. So the first part, I want to go over some of the losses. As you probably already aware, we have Mrs. LeBaron, who's retiring from kindergarten. We also have Ms. Schmidig, who is leaving for maternity. She's going to have a baby, so she's going to stay home with that baby, which is a great thing. And then we have Ms. Wilkie, who's asked for a release from her call, and also Mr. Dewar. So just to explain that real briefly, they are synodically trained. They're trained in the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod in a college, UC Irvine, UC Nebraska, or not UC Nebraska, it'd be Nebraska, Concordia. And so we have a bunch of Concordia schools for Lutherans throughout the states. And so they train different professions. A teacher is one of them. And so being trained, we call them to their ministry here at St. Peter or any school throughout the country. And so that process is called a call. They accept it. The congregation votes on that to offer that call. So the only two ways to change that is either them to rescind their call or ask for release, or the congregation to then terminate that call. Doesn't happen very often. So this is more the way it happens. So Ms. Wilkie is going to go back and be with family, and Mr. Dewar is going to look for other opportunities. And then we also have the music position open. All right? So those are the positions that we have open, and then we have the new hires to date. Hopefully you've received that communication. So we have Mrs. Delgado. She's taught PE and then aid part of the day here. She's moving into kindergarten, into Mrs. LeBaron's spot. And then we have Mr. Garrett, who happens to be here. He is then going to take over the PE position. So he'll be doing K through 5 PE next year. And we're excited about that. And then Mrs. McDowell, who is a called teacher, and she accepted her call that we offered her, and she's going to be our new 5th grade teacher. She teaches right now in New Orleans. Close enough to New Orleans, yes. So she'll be joining us here this summer. So that means we're still searching for some positions, and that's the 4th grade position, which is the doubling of our class, moving up. And then we have our 6th grade, Miss Wilkie, and then we have the middle school math, which is Mr. Dewar, and then we're still searching for a music teacher. And so those are the positions. We've been in the process of interviewing and searching, whether it be through the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod or locally. We've tried to find teachers throughout. Obviously, we want to get teachers that have credential in the classroom so that we have that. And we look whether they have a credential here in California or if we call them from another state that they have a credential in that one of those states. So that is our goal, and we're moving through that process. We hope to have, if not all those positions filled, most of them filled by the end of this year, the school year. It'd be really great if we can get it filled beforehand. Some of the things that we're doing to make that happen, we've talked to the Mission and Ministry Council, which is the governing board for the church, and they are the budgetary arm. They make all the heavy decisions. And so we took to them knowing our dilemma. Jenny, I don't know if you remember, but it's stacks of names that we call through the Lutheran Church. And most of the time we get, no thank you. Why would people not want to come to California? I can't understand that. But for some reason, they don't. So we know that we're going to also need to pull from local teachers. Not that we want to steal teachers, but we want to offer them the opportunity to be in a Christian environment and teach here as well. And so to do that, we looked at a salary schedule to match more along Lodi Unified. And so we're trying to get around 90% of what Lodi Unified pays to pay the teachers. So that might be enough interest to at least get them to talk to us and then get to know us and know that this is the place to work. So we're working on that. So part of what I wanted to talk about, other than just the positions, because I know that's important to you guys to know, who's my teacher for my student? And we understand that we really want to get that done and accomplished and find that out. But part of what we also want to do, and it's been part of the WASC process, and some of you may have volunteered to be part of that, and I apologize, I'm a little delayed in trying to get, there's a couple chapters that we put together that has data that then are used by the other groups. And part of that was, who are we? Who is St. Peter? And who should we serve? And so, we've been growing since COVID, and it's been really an outreach. And so it's time to say, okay, wait a minute, where we need to go, and then we're all on the same page. And so one of our members of the Christian Board of Christian Education is a longtime member, and he said, when St. Peter started 100 years ago, it was made for the families of St. Peter. Makes sense. But as it grew, it opened up to the community. So when we first started, it was 100% St. Peter families. Now, I don't know, it's probably 30% maybe St. Peter families and 70% not, which is a good thing. Because as we looked at it, and I think as the church has looked at it for over 100 years, is they see that school as a ministry. Many people go to Africa or to Asia or whatever. St. Peter said, you know what? We have plenty of people we can reach right here. And so a great way is to reach people through the school. It used to be that we would get parents to come to church and then bring their kids. Now it's kids are coming to school and they're bringing their parents to church, which is a great thing. So we needed to define who are we. And so if you've been part of this church or any other church, you know the Great Commission is to go make disciples of all nations. And so knowing that, it's like, well, we should grow then. This two-class thing should continue. And so, another philosophy that we've had is, we want to really be top-notch academically. And we could be that. But I think then we would see the numbers go down. Because are there that many folks in that realm that want that? And so we have to make a decision of where we want. Now, does that mean we scrimp on the academics? No. We have the same curriculum we've had. We'll continue to ask and challenge students. And there are some tweaks. We've talked to some families last night at the PTL. Was it last night? No, it was 2 nights ago. PTL meeting. Some of the parents there had some questions. And it is valid. You probably know that we've spent some time having resources for students that may struggle a little bit, and we've had some interventions. And so some families will say, well, what about the kids that are advanced? How do we take care of them? And so there are some things that we need to do. We need to look at the curriculum that we have, and most of the curriculums that we purchase, and we'll get more into that in a second, but most of them do come with the option or the opportunity to challenge students that are advanced. Now, does that mean that we're going to create and have students get above the grade level? Probably not, because then pretty soon you run into maybe 2 or 3 kids doing advanced math or language arts or whatever, and we have one teacher doing that, and we just can't afford that. But we can challenge kids within the course and within the topic. So, that's, again, we want to know who do we serve. And so part of that, as I mentioned about the mission of the church, is our mission statement for the school. It says the mission of St. Peter Lutheran School is first and foremost to assist parents, you guys, in teaching their children that God loves them, to disciple them in how Christ wants them to live, and to prepare them to share the love of Jesus to everyone they meet. And secondarily, to achieve a high standard of academic excellence. And we still want to abide by that. First and foremost, and especially one of the topics I'll talk about at the end, is teaching every child that God created them, has a purpose for them, and loves them. And that means he loves every other student in this school and every person outside the school. And so how do we drive that and get that through? So it's what type of school do we want to be? How can we meet that criteria of reaching out, expanding the school, reaching as many families as possible, and still keeping a high academic? So our curriculum is state and federally met to the standards. So we looked at a number of curriculum the last 4 or 5 years. Teachers went through that process of evaluating the different curriculum that were out there. And one of the focuses is, again, from parents that talked to us before, was, you're a Christian school, but your curriculum's really not faith-based. And so we started looking at that. So we decided on BJU Press for a good amount of our science, social studies, and language arts, thank you, and spelling. So it's encompassed now that talking about the Bible, talking about Jesus, talking about God is embedded in all those topics, which is important. The one area that we didn't is math. We have a secular curriculum. I don't think Lodi Unified uses it anymore. I think they did in the past. It was called From Savas. And so it goes K through 6th grade, actually 7th grade. In the 7th grade, we're using an advanced textbook from them. And then in 8th grade, we're using CPM, is the publisher, and it's the integrated one math, which is taught in high school in the public school system. And so there are those challenges that we want to make sure that we accomplish that. So looking at how do we meet the needs of the parents is, okay, what do you guys want? And so I think there's a few basic things that all parents want. Number one, safety. You send your kids to us and you expect them to be safe and come home the same way they left here. Sometimes that doesn't always happen 100%, but they come back to you in one piece. So safety is, not just from the outside dangers, but it's also knowing that that child is loved just like you love them, that we love them the same. And we need to do that. And so that's, I think, the number one priority for all of you folks. Secondarily, I think a lot of it, especially with COVID and what people saw online, is traditional academics. It's the reading, writing, math, arithmetic. Obviously, we're a Christian school. We're going to have religion class. We're going to teach about Jesus, not just in religion, but everywhere, because we think that's important. But we want to make sure that that curriculum meets the standards. So we went through, the teachers went through, evaluated state standards, national standards for each topic, each area when we went and focused on the curriculum, and decided what should a child know in each grade level so they're prepared for the next. And so our goal as we go through this now is to make sure the curriculum that we have, the lessons we teach, are meeting those standards. Okay. And so that's going to lead us to some other changes that we're going to do. And we're going to make sure, because this was another question from PTL last night, is, well, the teachers you're hiring, will they be able to teach the curriculum? And the answer is yes. As we look at teachers, they're going to have the credential. They're going to have experience. They may not have taught BJU because that's more Christian-based, but they're going to have taught curriculum and know. Now, one of the challenges, again, that was talked about is how do we do staff development to make sure the teachers understand the curriculum and can teach it? And that's something that we have to improve, and I have to improve on in providing that for our teachers. So we'll be working on a plan to make sure, as we buy new curriculum, that we do have staff development that will share with the teachers on how to do it for each of their classes so they understand that. The third thing that we think you guys want, maybe you don't know it, is what we call a family-friendly environment. So what does that mean? Because that can mean a lot of things. Most of us are parents as well. Most of us, with our kids, we know their outside interests. It's not just about school. So how can we work with you guys and your children to get them a quality education and yet have a family life? That doesn't mean you're spending, and I'm not saying you do this, but we don't want to have families spending 3-4 hours of homework each night. We don't want families to spend that much on the weekend. We believe that we can provide a quality education within the school day with some work going home. Because students should go home with work that they understand how to do. If they don't, then we have an issue, and we need to address that. If we send homework home that maybe a student doesn't understand, then we should be sending home instructions to help you as parents then get them through that. My kids are grown, I have grandkids now, but I can remember, I actually pushed it off to my wife most of the time, but I can remember those fights with my kids. That's not how my teacher showed me how to do it. Have you ever heard that? Once or twice. And my answer was probably what your answer was. I don't care, I'm going to show you my way and just do it. It's easier. And so we don't want to cause that stress at home. We want it to be a positive experience. And so that's what we're going to look to do to change. Again, homework that goes home. We know that, there are a wide range of families. You have families that have parents that are involved that are going to be sitting down every minute with the child doing it. We have other families that are either too busy, don't have the time, don't have the desire, which is not a knock. I told my kids, I went through 5th grade already. I don't want to do it again. And so you have the gamut. And so how do you have children be successful when that gamut? And so if we have them do the work here at school and then send home memory verses, spelling lists, reading, those type of things, math facts, those type of things that I think are pretty straightforward, that mom and dad can do flashcards and stuff like that without a lot of, hey, here's the 20 rules or 20 steps you got to do to do this. That we think that it will be successful. Because again, the purpose of school is not to frustrate kids, parents, teachers, administrators. It's to educate. It's to pass on that information so they master those skills. Okay? And so that's what we want to focus in on, is how can we make sure the kids are mastering that? We want to allow you guys to be able to participate in those things outside of school that you want to do, whether it's sports, something else, relaxing, watching a movie with your kids, and not have to worry about it. So we know, back in the day, kids would be home, their parents would be the teachers. Then as our society got more diverse and more change and more technology, all of a sudden mom and dad went off to work, and so let's see, we have teachers, we have specialty people that can teach our kids. Let's send our kids there. And so that's great, but we want to make sure that our teachers, who are now those experts that you put in charge of your kids, then do that work. So we're going to try to take on as much of that learning process there at school. So, because I'll tell you, you're looking, and I can probably say every one of you had fun with math in the last few years. And so it's something that our teachers are trained in, and they will have that concept, and they'll be able to show without arguing with the kids. And so our goal is to make sure that we do it there. The other thing that we want to do is create a little bit more consistency. So that's consistency in communication. We have a grade book right now. It's called Blackbaud. Some of you might like it, some of you may hate it, some of you may never have used it. But we really want to use that as a communication tool. We're changing to a product called GradeLink. It's going to have its own app, so information will be pushed out that way. And we want to make sure that through that, you guys use that system because it'll have grades. We're looking at making some changes to have the standards. Now, some people go, well, parents won't know about what the standard means. No, but they'll at least know that are they mastering it? Because if your child gets an A, B, C, or D, or whatever in a class, what does that mean? Do you guys know what that means? It's, hey, they're getting an A, good, leave it alone. But does that mean they're mastering all those skills or enough? So we want to make sure that and for us too, it's a tool for me, for Mrs. Urias, for the teachers. Are they mastering? Are they missing something? Do we need to go back and teach something? So we want to use that grade book as a communication tool with you. We also want to be consistent on homework policy. I know that goes different wherever, but we want to get more consistency. Education is a different animal. However, Christian education, where you guys pay to come here, is, I don't believe, much different than a business. You guys have options, and you've selected us, and we thank you for that. And it's how can we produce a product that is beneficial to you and helpful? And that's how we interact, how we communicate with you, and how do we just do different things. So when you go to a store, if you have to do 50 different things, would you go to that store, or would you go to one that I know exactly how to do things? I go in this one, the aisle's always there, you don't change the aisles. So we want to be consistent in that manner and provide that product. Kind of the last item I have here to talk, and then again, you guys will ask if you have questions and we can go through that, is I had a question already from a parent who wouldn't be able to make it here tonight, but asked the question about, I'll say this one, but it's really, their concern was, the statement was bullying, and how does that go, and how it's, in their minds there were things that have happened, people have left because of it, and so I think it's important to kind of define what bullying is, because and I don't mean that to be, I don't know the term, but because we all have our different thing. If a child, something said to a child mean, that can be, oh, that's bullying. Let me just say, if that's our definition, we're going to have a lot less kids in the school. Because every single day, kids say mean things to each other. Sometimes it's on purpose, sometimes it's to get a reaction, sometimes, it's just, you said something to me, so I'm going to up you one, and then I'm going to up you one, and I'm going to up you one. And so, what do we do? And it's been an issue. It's been an issue before I got here, it's been an issue since I've been here, and it continues. And we just started this book this past year. It's called Young Peacemaker. The success of how we implement, it's going to take us time to go through. But I think it's a good tool. And I want to read to you this part. It talks about conflict. And it says, conflict starts in the heart. Our choices come from our hearts. If our hearts are filled with selfish desires, we will often make choices that lead to conflict. But if our hearts are filled with a desire to love and please God, we will usually make choices that promote peace. And that's part of what we want to teach the kids. And I think that's going to be important for us to share this information with you guys so that you can use some of that language as well. Because it's true. We use the, I don't want to say adult version. There's a book that the gentleman who, his wife wrote this. He wrote Peacemaker, and it's for adults and other folks that want to deal with conflict in a biblical way. And one of the things he says is, in conflict, how can I glorify God? Think about that. When you've had conflict, whether it be with a spouse or another person, have you stopped and said, how can I glorify God in this? If you think about that for a minute, I think the answer will be, wow. how does that change that aspect? All of a sudden, it's not about me. It's not what you did to me. It's how can I glorify God? How can I have that person across that I'm in conflict with? How can I get them to see the love of God? That's huge. So if we can talk to the kids in that manner and get them to learn, because and you guys know it, if you can be good at resolving conflict, that's a huge life skill to have. Because guess what? Our life is filled with conflict. And so we want to make sure that we teach the kids that. Another item in the book is, which is true as well, any conflict, or I'll say 99.9% of conflicts that I have at least that much in it. I've done something to contribute to it. Other times it's like I have that much in that ball. So again, that's some of the things that we want to share with the kids, and it's going to take time to change that mindset, because it's not about us. I'm not the best. I'm not, we've had some other issues. You know what? God's created each and every one of us for a purpose. He has meaning for everyone, regardless of our status, regardless of our skin color, regardless of our physical ability. And we have to understand and share with the kids. We can't make fun of that. We can't, because they're created in the image of God just like we are. And we need to treat everyone with that respect. So the answer to the bullying is we need to do this. We need to talk about this more. We need to develop that and work with the kids. And that is, you go to the kids and you work through it. We ask the kids, try to work through it yourself, especially the little ones. If you can't, go to an adult and we'll help walk through it. Because that's what conflict is. Yelling and screaming or calling people names, that's not going to resolve the conflict. We need to go. And so if a child has that problem, if someone's doing that, come to an adult, we'll come over there and we're going to go through that. We're going to go, okay, what's going on? Why do we want to do that? Again, in our handbook policy, I think it's five instances. And again, there are a lot of people, whether the kid's just impulsive, you guys know your kids, you've probably seen other kids. There are times they just get impulsive. They get mad. You know what? We're human beings. We're all going to make mistakes. So how can we teach and also get them to follow along, as opposed to, you know what? You've done your 5, you're out. I might think that's great, but if my kid does it, I'll say, whoa, can I have about 6 more times? And so can we give grace each way? We're going to try to work through it. Yes, it has to be escalated. It has to be, we're working with you. Okay, Mom and Dad, you're going to work with us with them. Okay, Mom and Dad, you know what? We're not getting anywhere. We got to change something. So that's pretty much what I have to say in sharing. I don't know if you guys have questions that you want to ask, that maybe something's come up, that you go, hey, what about this? What about that? Hopefully I'll have an answer for you. If not, I can get one. Yes, Liz.
I know you guys sent out an email about students' homework and how much time they should be spending. I believe it was like 10 minutes per grade, is that right?
Yes, so the question is that we send out information about homework, and it should be about 10 minutes per grade. So if you're a first grader, it should be about 10 minutes. Obviously, if they're doing a reading, it may be a little bit longer. But so second grade, 20, third grade, 30, that kind of thing.
So does that include memory, spelling, all of those other things that they bring home, and then in addition, 30 minutes?
Well, no, I don't. We don't want you to spend hours of homework, because if you're, it should be all inclusive. Whatever you're getting home is homework. We should assume that. And one of the things that we haven't figured out next year exactly how to do it. One idea is to have the students, as they're assigned homework, write down in the upper right corner, how many minutes does the teacher think that's going to take you? Take it home. Parents, look at that homework. Okay, I'm setting the timer. do your work. When they're done with it, write on there how much time it took. If the child is willing to work and spend the time and it goes over, that's fine, but then let the teacher know, hey, and actually the teacher will know because the student will write, I spent 15 minutes, but it's at 10. Teacher will look at those coming back. Man, everybody spent 15 or more minutes. I misjudged that one. I better think about that next time. That's an instant feedback that we can get. Because we want to make sure, again, that the goal is that they are able to do the work and get it done. If they're struggling, I've told this to a number of families, and I hope whoever's watching too, and you guys, if you're doing homework with your child, I always say, do the problems you know. Do the ones you can get done. Get them done, okay? Then go back to the ones that are tough. If you get to that magic time, or the kid and you are arguing because, I'm just fed up, stop. Write it out to the teacher. Spent this much time on homework, we're done. And we need to say, you know what, we're good. We'll work on that. We'll figure out how we can go about that. But we don't want to get the kids frustrated. That's not what school's about. School's a challenge, yes, but it's not to frustrate. Yes? So the question is enrollment and where we are wait list wise. So Mrs. Hinders, if I'm incorrect, you can straighten me out. So kindergarten, there is. Yes, a wait list. So that's full and then there's a wait list. I don't have my sheet with me.
There's a few spots probably in almost each grade. There's a couple that are not. We have maybe one grade that is lower than what I would like, but there's been no talk about doing the combination class.
Yeah, so the answer on the combo, no, there will be no combo classes next year. We have enough students for the two classes per grade, and the lower for K through 4. And then, as Mrs. Hinders, one of the class, what grade is it?
It's going into
Okay, so I think we have 11 spots or something like that as of right now. And so we are going to have our open house, and we're going to have an opportunity for families to come in. Should I?
I'm really working on enrollment right now for new people on the wait list in June, and hopefully the next week or two I'll have the final number, and we'll start advertising the school spots. And so hopefully our numbers will start inviting those specific areas. And then we'll reach again, and there's an opportunity besides that one.
So what we will tell them is it's a great opportunity to get into 5th grade because you're getting ready for those trips. And we've been working on a trip. We're not 100% sure. I'm going to say it, Ms. Hinders. I'm going to get myself in trouble. You heard it here first. The 7th grade trip, because we have 8th grade is DC, we have science camp for 6th grade. We're trying to get a trip to the Ark Encounter and the Creation Museum for 7th grade. And so that's in Kentucky, Ohio, Kentucky. And it would be, there's a couple other things that are potentially there too to see. But we're reaching out to some companies to put that in there. So I think that would be a pretty good science camp, Ark experience, or Ark Encounter in the DC. Right. So tell all your friends that we have spots and that we're willing to have conversations with them. It's we see those trips as part of the curriculum, so that's why it's part of the tuition. And again, our goal here at St. Peter is we want to make a Christian education affordable as best we can. And so we're trying to do that. As I said earlier, we're trying to attract great staff, pay-wise and benefits. We're trying to offer some great opportunities. We believe that we give a great education here all throughout, and so we're happy. And by the way, did I mention that you families, if you bring somebody in and they say that you told them, you get a month of tuition free. So, another insight. Any other questions? This isn't a sales job, by the way. I'm a terrible salesperson. Yes?
When it for middle school, the 6th, 7th, 8th, when it turn out for the interviewing process, it's not what you were hoped for, what is your plan B?
Plan B. So the question is, in 6th, 7th, and well, the upper middle school, what are our plan Bs? So we have a great teacher in mind. Most of you know the teacher that we have that has a possibility, and that would be Mrs. Urias is one of our plan Bs, and we would have her go into the classroom and teach. She's very multifaceted, can teach anywhere, so yeah. Excuse me? Oh yeah, we need to. And so we're having that search. We are going to, we'll put out an advertisement in the paper to reach out to individuals that may have that desire to come and teach here at St. Peter. And because we know they're kind of committed as well to whatever school. And so we want to give them the opportunity as well. Because if someone does leave somewhere, then they're leaving a hole there. We don't really want to do that, but we'll see. Yes?
So moving forward, the current third grade class is a class of double eleven right here.
Yeah.
So is there a plan in place already to have or have a teacher for that following year, or will it be like this every year? Or we're looking for
So our process, the question is about the third grade that's going to be fourth grade, and every year there's going to be a need for another teacher. We're going to hire another teacher until we get throughout 8th grade. So what we typically do now is we start that process in October, November, looking through they're called CMIFs for the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod for called workers. So we reach out to them, and then we'll do the same thing locally as well at about that time to see if there's any interest locally as well, because we want to do them at the same time. That way it's not, well, we didn't get that, so we'll go here. We want to try to make those in line. You know, this year's unique. We've had, a lot of changes, which we don't anticipate moving forward. And that's part of it too, is we want to make sure as we hire teachers that we're up front with them, and this is who we are. This is who we want to be. This is how our policies are. This is what we're looking for. Come join us. We think it's great. We interviewed a person last night, and the person said, I'm a mom too. I don't want to send a lot of homework, and I don't want to do a lot of stuff there. I want to educate them there, and then let them have a life as well. So I think that's a good answer. I don't know. You guys like family time with your kids? Maybe you don't. Yes, go ahead.
Are you waiting to announce for these teachers to come in and at the high level? We have this release already. So
Yes.
are you waiting to say like who goes into 7th, 8th?
Yeah. So we'll see who we have coming in. We have some flexibility. We're obviously going to have a homeroom teacher. We've discussed the potential of having 6th grade be a standalone class, like the K through 5, and then just have 7th and 8th. But as Mrs. Urias said, we may, if we were to do that, we'd probably still split and have the kids go to the 6th grade teacher and 5th grade, so they would take a subject and they would teach both groups, so it gives the kids some exposure to that. So we have things to determine yet that we haven't done 100% worked out.
And you're hoping to do that by 7th?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes, the goal is to have everything lined up before we leave, so you guys know who the teachers are, where they're going to be, and we're ready to go. So, Janine, you had it?
I just want to say, I have a lot of friends in the public school system, and there is a teacher shortage across the board. Unbelievable building and what I outgrowth and so I don't want you to think that it's St. Peter is struggling to get teachers. Everywhere is struggling to get teachers, and that's one reason we need to up our game on our salary, is so that we can draw some of those teachers in, because
Yes, sir.
So going back to like our goals as an organization, like how do we know, like how are you going to measure, how are you going to like, who was thinking of how we're doing, like, I think that's something we kind of find missing, is like, how do we know schools meeting those objectives? How do we know what they, you know, I have to say, how do we know what's going on with teachers? Like, a little bit of lack of
Yeah.
communication, like, newsletter,
Sure.
yeah, like on a very consistent basis, so we can call, but we just want to hear your perspective.
Sure. So the question was about our goals. How do we meet, and how do we, prove that we're meeting that high standard for stuff? And so we haven't had great tools yet, and that's part of WASC, that we need to determine what are those tasks. Now, anecdotally, what can we say? We've had kids leave here, and they'll go to, I know some of them that have gone low to high, they'll take honors English. One of the students that was graduated from here went there, showed their mom the list of books to read for the honors English class. They read them all here, except maybe 2, because they had content that was a little iffy for us. But so, and then in math, we've had a lot of kids, again, this is not, we don't have that document, we have to do that, saying that they're well prepared for math, that they excel at math. And so, we need to do statistics and show that. I can't remember the number, but in years past, that they'll put in the paper the top 10 students graduating. Usually there's 1 or 2 from St. Peter in that list. Yes.
How do you, as a principal, know throughout the year that your teachers are on board and teaching the appropriate curriculum for that throughout the school year? How do you know that they are on track?
Good question. So how do I, as a principal, know that we're on track? And this is something that Mrs. Rye has helped with greatly, is creating a pacing guide, especially for the double classes. And so, and then having lesson plans set out. And so she started working with those. I've got to get more involved in that and see that, okay, we've got the pacing guide. What are we supposed to be teaching? Okay. And then what are the lesson plans? So that will give us an idea, me an idea, to say, yes, they're on track. And especially the double classes, are they close? Of course, they're not going to be exactly all the time, but okay, they're in the same chapter, they're doing similar stuff. One of the things that we talked about is every student, especially with the 2 classes, we want to make sure the kids are getting similar assignments. So the homework assignment should be the same in either class. It's not, oh, this one's using this one and that one's using, no. It's going to be the same. So if they're not on the same exact chapter right at the same time, but when they get there, that homework assignment's going to be the same. Does that help? So for me, I'm going to be able to look at those things online. Part of that new grade book has that built in that I'm going to be able to look at and see. And then, of course, part of it too is that I need to get into the classrooms, which if you ask the teachers, I don't see them enough. And they're right. I got to get in there more. I got to get away from my desk and do that. So that's going to be my challenge. Yes?
How do you plan to help teachers with their class information? Because some teachers are really struggling, especially those to manage the classrooms. Their kids, without being disrespectful to teachers.
Mm-hmm.
And they can't manage it right back in. So some students who want one,
Yeah, yeah. Right. And that is, I think, for a teacher, not that I've ever been a teacher, but I believe that's probably one of the toughest things, but it's an important, critical thing. And so that's one of the things that we had talked about, and that's why we created the VP position, is to allow, to have somebody, well, the intent was to be able to mentor all the teachers. We have a number of new teachers, so we haven't been able to get to as much as what we'd like to. So my answer to that is that, again, I need to get into the class. One of us has to get in the class to assist in that, because that is something that's learned and help through and encourage. And again, if we get standardization, because again, I know what you're talking about, and I've talked to the kids, I said, you're fine in that class and that class, but for some reason you have a problem in this one. Wonder why? So it's a choice. It's a choice. And so it's developing the similar rules and saying, well, these are the rules that are going to be in there, and they're going to be consistent. Yes, ma'am.
But now that class belongs to all those guys that teacher, how do you plan going forward? How do you get that class on track?
So, what's that?
At this point, I know you're talking for maybe home. This class that she started with, getting chaos, daily. How if she is the eighth grade homeroom teacher, how is she going to be intersecting mistakes that are already over?
Well, I think that's going to be a process that we obviously will talk about and things that we can offer up to change, and then it's going to take some assistance to be in there. Huh? Yeah, well, we'll fix it. We'll fix it.
Well, one thing as a teacher, you know, one too, is classroom management is not something that you learn very well in your credential program. It's not taught. Classroom management is something that you learn over time, dealing with situations, learning, okay, this isn't working, this is how you handle that. Yes, you need to give further support. I totally agree. But it will take time. And it also takes parent support too on the outside. Knowing that she is a new teacher and she is going to struggle, I think it's important for the parents to support that teacher. Hey, you need to be, you know, if you're part of that, you need to be sitting there, you need to be listening, you need to be not participating in this, you know, this, whatever's going on. You need to set the example. As a parent, that's what I would, you know, preach to my child. And I just think all of us together, we can all support her in our own way too, because it's just going to take time for her to learn. You can rarely you can just take a teacher right out of the credential program and they're going to just drop it, especially with that class.
So,
A little bit more personality.
and that's true, as you said, kindergarten throughout. That respect, and that goes back to teaching the kids. You know what? We have to have respect for adults, and that goes for our after-school care program, goes for the lunch crew, goes for the custodians, anyone, that we need to have that respect. And so, and that's on my job to then to go in there and to give that support and to help out with her. And if I have to spend time in that classroom, you know, that's what I do. And I will let, you know, the kids know that, you know, if you get sent to me because of that teacher, because you're not paying attention, well, then there's going to be some severe consequences because you have the opportunity, you know how to behave. Barry, you had a question?
To call that, how many chances are these kids going to get when they're constant disruptors? I know we want to get grace.
Yeah.
Grace only exists so
Well,
far as
so back to the same thing as I mentioned. So they come, okay, there's going to be a point that's, okay, mom and dad are going to come in. And I don't want to use Johnny because that name's always used. Fred. So Fred is coming. Mom and dad, you know, this is what's happening. What can you do to help get them there? Because if we have an issue, we can have mom and dad spend some time in the classroom too. I mean, that's if they have that time. So we have ways to go through that and then have that. And then, yeah, if we can't, if mom and dad can't get it, we can't get them to sit still and behave in class and allow the others to learn. There's two things. Child's out of class. You're paying a lot of money to have your child sit in my office or out in front. So you either hopefully get them to understand or it's time to find somewhere else. That's not the answer I want to give, but if we can't come to an agreement, because our goal is to help that child, just like the parent. And we're not saying that's a bad child, we're saying here's the behavior that we see. How can we correct that behavior? So we can either correct it as a team or we can't, and it's time to go somewhere else. Okay, yes ma'am.
I was wondering if there was any consideration for looking at how parents are volunteering and utilizing the classrooms for something like this that might be helpful to have another adult presence for the teachers that maybe are struggling with having to watch a lot of stuff. And I know with this situation, study hall is one of the areas where this is happening.
Yeah.
And so I was just wondering, because I know some of the
Yes, one would hope. And so we do want to have the volunteer, and we've talked to the staff about thinking about areas that parents can volunteer in each of the classes so that we can provide that, post that, and then have parents go ahead and sign up for those things. So we do want to encourage that. We want to have the parents be involved. Now, granted, as they get older, there's a little bit less desire for the child to see their parents in there. But again, if the parent wants to come in, we should be fine to have that come through and help.
Well, it just seems like, I don't know the teacher this year, but it seems like it's for the parties, you know what I mean? And not so much like helping the teacher go in and, just having the presence in the classroom or, maybe even helping grade some of the papers or do
Sure.
whatever is needed, as they do in public schools.
Mm-hmm. Right. And that's,
There's some way we can mandate like some parent volunteer structure for the teachers. Like, here's how you get parents to sign up, because as far as parents are concerned, the purpose is completely different.
right.
And class to class is very different.
Right.
For administration, say, this is how you sign up, this teachers, here's how you do volunteering, here's the system we use. Just to make it really consistent every year, I know what the teacher needs, and if it's
Right.
requirements, and I can opt in or opt out. So last year was a very great job that you had to apply in a few minutes if you wanted to volunteer in the classroom. And this year it's been, I had to work with the teacher to set it up.
Right.
And I had to force them
Right.
to kind of say, I'll show up on Thursday, what do I do? But not everyone's going to do that. I don't have time to do that. So it could be like, I need 30 minutes every Tuesday.
Right.
Who can help?
Right.
And stuff like there. I think we can mandate that from
Right.
administration and make it a lot easier
Right.
for us to if we want to.
Certainly. Yeah. So we'll work with that on staff to come up with ideas that. Okay. All right. Hey, I'll be ready. Other questions? It's getting warm in here. Not because of the questions. Well, I do truly appreciate you guys taking the time to come out. And again, it's going to be a process to make some of the changes, but we think these are positive things that we think you'll enjoy and receive well. And we want to really get that communication with the parents and the teachers to build that relationship, because it's about that. It's about your children, and that we want it to be a positive thing. We want them to learn. We want to know when things aren't working, because there's some things that you guys will know about your kids that we don't, and it's like they're coming in with a bad mood. Well, maybe there's a reason. Well, if we know that, and that's one thing we talked about. Greet every child coming in, and when you see dudes like that, what's wrong? Ask, because then we can stop. I shared with the staff, they get tired of me sharing the story. But when I took my daughter to Monterey, she was going to play basketball, and so we were looking at the place and talking to the coach. And the coach asked her about what career she wanted to do. She said kinesiology. She said, well, what do you want to do? And she said, well, I want to be a coach. And she goes, don't do kinesiology. And she goes, my job as a coach is to walk in that gym and look around at each of my players and find out where my problem is. I need to go address that before practice starts, otherwise practice will be a mess. And that is so true. Same thing with kids. Where's my trouble? Because if we don't address it before class, that will act up during class, and now I got a problem. Much rather prevent than to deal with it after the fact. So, just how do we relate? Get to know your kids, get to know you. And that's why we have the one-on-one. We want to have some time to know you and to know your child. Not just say, well, okay, here's the grading, and here's the this, and here's that. That's important. But it's also important to get to know you and things that go on with your child. And you say, well, they're a little finicky about this. Oh, okay. Well, then that's good to know. So those are important things. And the more we have conversations, the more we get to know you, the more we get to know the kids, and the more we can meet those needs. Yes?
So, whatever's going on in the middle school, we're pretty much at the end of the year. So, from the beginning of the school year up until this point, has there been any type of involvement or any work done to help this teacher, help the student
So, yeah, we've had some conversations. I know I've been in there. I know Janine's been in there at different times. Obviously, there's more work to be done. And again, that process is gonna take a bit of time. But I hear you. We're gonna solve that problem. Yes. Yeah, and that's what I mean. It's on me because you.
You, and not just you, I just mean it.
No.
Leadership group, right? There's great potential, leadership, training,
Right.
all of that stuff, and guidance.
Right.
And helping with guidelines and that.
Yes.
His kids are doing really well in their classes. It's just, I think
Right.
she just needs more support. And
Right.
there's definitely structure available at the school. We've been here since school. We're in seventh grade now. We've had a great experience. And we need more support there.
Right.
And with two veteran teachers leaving,
Right.
it's kind of, scary.
Well, and that's that in general, because as we grow, we're going to need to hire teachers, and it makes sense to bring in younger teachers as well. You got to have that mix, just like any profession. You need to have those steps, so not everybody's retiring at the same time, and not everybody's brand new. And so, if we're going to do that, which we need to have a method for walking along and supporting. When you were on the school board, we talked about that. That's something that we want to try to do. And so we have to be very mindful of that, how many new teachers can we take at a time? It's probably going to have to be one, no more than two. Because we need to have resources in there, walk in, help out, and especially at the beginning of the year, because that's where you set it. If we don't do it at the beginning of the year, it's hard to rein things back in. You guys that are teachers know that. You guys have dealt with that. And so it's important. We've got to make things, finish the year well, and then we need to start the year off very well. And we will work towards that. So I know where I'm going to spend my first month next year. Okay, any other questions? Again, thank you for all coming, and tell all your friends we have spots open, and if they're a teacher, hey, you know what? We'd love to talk to you. Clayton, you got a question? Do I look like I need a hug? Come up here. I always take a hug. I feel lucky. What do you feel lucky about? Thanks. Good job. So you get everything done? All your homework?
Yeah.
Awesome. Good job. Thanks for coming. Mrs. Hinders, you didn't have any questions? Mrs. Hinders, you didn't have any questions? Okay. What'd you say?